So, Noise for Hope, the podcast. Big question. I think a great question would be why another podcast when there's 1,000 of them a second just being spewed out all about all kinds of things. And aside from why a podcast, why this specific thing, right? Why this thing that I'm calling Noise for Hope? And I guess I'm audacious, just audacious enough to assume, because I've seen content, I've consumed content, I've read a lot, I've watched a lot, I've absorbed a lot. I'm arrogant enough to think that, well, maybe what I have to say is just as valuable, perhaps, maybe even more so in some cases, considering some of the things that are out there. Now, I'm not doing sensational, stupid stuff. There was a time, however, the reason my name is Leo Freakdaddy Brown, if you will use my radio moniker there, that's what I was in morning radio. I did crazy stunts. I did anything to get attention. We got ourselves in squad cars at times. I mean, crazy things happened, and that was a lot of fun. And we made an impact. We did back then, and it was 30 years ago when my value set really wasn't fully developed and evolved to the point that now I realized that as fun as that was, and we had a great time and it was fun to entertain, and it's always fun to entertain. Aside from the work that I did, and I was afforded the opportunity to work with nonprofits, and I worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters and did a lot of cool stuff with them. I got to do some neat stuff with Habitat for Humanity and MDA Telethon, the Jerry's Kids Telethon. My goodness, we got to do a ton of work with them. And so, really, I got a taste for what media could do when you're really working for the good, right? And you're doing all of this stuff to make, put somebody else in the spotlight or make something really good for someone else and help them along the way. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this is really cool. Media can do this. And, but at the same time, I still wasn't being personally fulfilled completely, because I knew every day it was just about, what do I do next, right? Now, okay, well, we pushed the envelope ridiculously far yesterday. Now what do we do, right? And, we're in the middle of this thing and our ratings are climbing, and it's crazy. And I'm looking at opportunities across the country, literally in big markets, and amazing things that were happening back in the 1990s, children back then. And, it was spectacular, quite honestly, what all was happening. And unfortunately, how little gratitude I had for it at the time. I kind of felt like I was, I was deserving of this. I've worked my ass off all my career for this. I'm 26 years old, whatever. And, but I had no fulfillment. I had no real fulfillment. I mean, aside from, like I say, those glimmers of times when I would work with a project, with a nonprofit, and I knew that, okay, well, these guys are getting something good out of this, and it made me feel good. But again, the whole thing, it wasn't fulfilling for me, and it was just a grind. It became this grind, and now you're dealing with the ratings, and now you're trying to get to the next level, and now you're looking at this, you're looking at that, and we're going to go syndicated, and all of this stuff that happens, and then regardless of the money that you could make with that, which there are people who have made a tremendous amount of money in media, God bless them. For me, and I think that I'm not the only one who feels this way. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, because I speak to you, I talk to you, we have conversations through email and messenger and what have you, and I know that there are other people who feel this way, and that is when you are able to be missional and purposeful, there's something really awesome about that, right? Now, I'm conflicted. I got to be honest. I'm conflicted on this because I'm also a big believer in the Tao and the Tao Te Ching, which is just kind of this Wu Wei, if you will, understanding of how to act without acting, to do without doing, to be a human being, not a human acting kind of thing, right? And so, there's a big part of me that's very much about flow and about being in this thing that's guiding you and allowing the universe to unfold for you. And I believe that's going to happen. But I also believe that when you get to this point of going, okay, it's a decision that I am going to make to be a person of contribution. And by doing that, there's a purposeful peace that comes from that, right? So I believe that even though it's transactional, it's transformational. So isn't that okay? Isn't that okay? And I think that, we can get really caught up in a lot of trappings at times when it comes to religion or morality or faith or politics or anything that we can get wrapped up in. We can get to the point where, we're maybe losing perspective and we're not really boiling it down to the simple. And that's what this is about for me, right? Because Noise for Hope, the nonprofit, is out there doing something, right? We're out there doing benefit shows. I'm a musician. I've been a musician forever, been at radio forever. All of this stuff culminating into, well, let's do this show. Let's have comedians. Let's play trivia. Let's do all of these fun things that we can do and have fun with it and be entertaining and do it for a good cause and raise some money and help some people out. That's what Noise for Hope, the nonprofit, is about. This podcast is about talking about things like this and ideally finding a way to be inspirational and really lead by example and to try to show you that, well, I'm doing this. I'm working on this. I'm trying to make this happen. And by watching me do this and really make this commitment to this mission, and my mission is going, okay, I've got all this media experience. I've got all these years of radio. I know it doesn't matter this day and age. It comes down to, a lot of luck of the draw and a lot of, are you in the right place at the right time? And does this thing hit the way it really needs to hit? And, I know we don't know necessarily how big something can get, but I also believe in using your gifts wisely and investing appropriately. And I'm going to say a lot of stuff, just so you know, I'm going to say a lot of stuff that sounds really, really religious. And just to clarify, I spent a lot of years in that world. I spent a lot of years in the Christian faith. I spent a lot of years in the mega church. I spent a lot of years in the Catholic Church, and I was deeply involved in both of these ministries as an adult, and for decades. So, and I was trained in both of their camps. So, I went to the big seminars and the Willow Creek Association stuff up in Chicago, if you know anything about that. And then as a Catholic, I got to literally travel the world as a youth catechist, right? So I was trained in the Diocese of Lexington to teach the faith as an actual certified catechetical teacher, right? So that's why you're going to hear a lot of this stuff that comes out of me naturally. But when I do these things and say these things like, talking about the gifts, the talents, investing those, you're going to hear me say that kind of stuff a lot. But as I do, there's certainly no moral judgment here, right? I am the last individual that could ever impose any remote judgment upon anyone, given my life, okay? So understand that. Also understand you're going to hear me say things that I've picked up from the Tao or picked up from the little bits and pieces of Hinduism or Buddhism or things that I may have been interested in and kind of sort of studied. But, by and large, my My faith tradition is that of Christianity. So that stuff is just going to come out of me without question. It's going to happen. And it's cool. I mean, I believe in that stuff, right? I mean, it's kind of what Noise for Hope is all about. Again, this acronym, how our purpose exists. How our purpose exists. Well, how our purpose exists is by doing something. And if you, again, not to be religious, not to be, this is pigeonholing us into some sort of faith tradition, because that's not what this is about, I promise you. But if you simply just boil this down to what Jesus said when asked very clearly, what's the greatest of the commandments? And he simply says, well, really kind of comes down to this, the law and the prophets, meaning everything that's come before, everything that will come after the law and the prophets, all of the teaching, the Torah, all of everybody who has said and uttered anything that was recorded and is there in the canon of Scripture, you name it, all of this boils down to just two very simple things is what Jesus said. And he said, love God and love others, right? And I think depending on the interpretation, it's love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, or heart, soul, and strength, or whatever, right? But it's this idea that there's something about putting your all into something and doing that, certainly with the understanding of others, that they could potentially benefit. And if they do benefit, well, hey, amen, right? Again, not to be religious, but I believe there's something to that, because I think the flip side of that really is peace. And St. Paul, I don't know where, in some epistle, something he was writing to a church that had been established after he got on his ridiculous terror of evangelization. And, you know, he's talking about this stuff like praying unceasingly. What does that mean? You know, how can that be something that you can even sustain? I mean, how is that even possible? But when, I know this sounds, again, very religious for something that's not religious-y, but when you connect those dots to say, okay, well, what if I really was doing the thing that I'm created to do? Or even if you don't accept that and you just say, what if I'm doing the thing that I really love to do? What if I'm doing the thing that I'm really good at? And what if I'm doing that with excellence? What if I'm doing that with the absolute highest level of integrity that I can offer, because this is the best I got? This is my culmination of years of what I've done, and I'm going to give that essentially away, right? I'm going to give that because I want to put the spotlight on others, and I want to help others understand that there's a path to peace, and that's through purpose, and that's by being a person of contribution. So, you know, if that's where you are, whatever that is, and you're giving of yourself in that fashion, ultimately the bottom line is you're going to get something in result out of that. And I remember reading The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck, the classic decades ago. And at the time, I'm pretty sure he was talking about Mother Teresa, and he basically says, hey, you know, even Mother Teresa, in all of her altruistic displays, is ultimately selfish, because she gets something out of that. And I remember thinking, you know, that's somewhat cynical, but I don't believe it is. I think that there's beauty, right? There's beauty in the fact that we can give. Wow, how cool is that? We can give of ourselves. And especially if you're a phenomenal musician, or you're talented in some way that is performance related, not that it has to be, but say that it is. And you get to do that. You get to do that. And by doing that, others are fulfilled, and you put money in your pocket. I remember a guy that was on Catholic radio. Good Lord, I can't remember his name. But he had a fine career. He had a fine career as a Catholic performer, and basically all he did was perform in nursing homes. and sold his CDs. But he got Catholic radio play and got to, talk about all of this music that he was recording and doing. He was living his purpose. And obviously contributing, getting something out of that, getting a lot out of that, I'm certain, because he enjoyed himself doing it. So that's what this is about, right? It's all about seeing hope as a verb, seeing it for what it is, that, boil that crazy acronym down and realize that, there's steps along the way. We're going to unpack that. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff. And I don't want it to sound preachy. I don't want it to be too teachy, but I definitely want to say, hey, there's a method here to this madness. And if you're willing to roll with me on this journey, I'm going to help you through it. And we're going to do this together. And we're going to discover, ideally, that this hypothesis that I am proposing is really, there's something to it. And I believe that's true. And I've certainly seen that in the evidence so far. And I certainly hear that in the stories that we will hear. So we're going to have commercial breaks. Ultimately, there will be sponsors when we break away for these kind of things. Right now, just pretend that we've got... look at this studio filled with amazing sponsors who are helping me do what I do. I'll be back in a moment. So the most awesome thing that I get to do on this podcast is talk to people who are out there living their purpose and doing amazing stuff. And it's humbling every time I have a conversation with these individuals who are out there living the life and doing what they say they're going to do, because it's, I always feel like, well, I'm just not contributing enough. Woo, good Lord. Ginny Ramsey has been a friend for a long time, and I got to say that, God rest his soul, Father Norman Fisher was very instrumental in connecting us, however long ago that was. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But it was humbling to be a part of that initial Catholic Action Center thing, right? We're down in the middle of Lexington's inner city, if you want to call Lexington having an inner city, but we're down at 4th and Chestnut in this area that was certainly not the most desirable area of town where this place ended up being. And we're having a block party. I get to be the DJ at the opening of the Catholic Action Center. And I remember I met the bishop at the time, Bishop Kendrick Williams, and he was awesome. And Father Norman Fisher and I were just becoming friends. And wow, just crazy journey. When I think about where I've been since then, where the Catholic Action Center has been since then, and I've just watched Jenny over the years with just so many cool things that have come her way. And I know it's not without tremendous work and challenge and sacrifice and pain through the process, but my God, she just keeps going, keeps doing this thing and serving. And I know, I've known her, I know what it brings her, and it's so awesome to see her work. So I'm humbled and honored and blessed, all of the above, for my first guest on my maiden voyage of the Noise for Hope podcast to be Ginny Ramsey. We'll be back in a moment with Jenny. Ginny Ramsey, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Leo. How are you?
I'm great. It's always great to see you and talk about somebody who was out there showing what purpose looks like. You've been shaming us all for almost 30 years now with the Catholic Action Center.
No shame, just inviting people to be part of the joy of the Catholic Action Center.
No. Well, when I say putting the rest of us to shame is what I mean with such a public witness. And, I think there are people who see what you do and they think, well, that's great. That's great for Ginny, but that wouldn't be the thing that I would want to do. And that's fine. It is okay. But I'm sure you struggled with this at the beginning
whether or not this was something you really wanted to vote to. You would had to have, right? Did you have moments where you were like, can I keep doing this?
Well, I mean, it was pretty amazing when we first started the Catholic Action Center, and that was after 5 years of working with the mayor's task force that was started in response to the food stamps being cut, the people's disability being cut, all the things that happened during Bill Clinton's time with the welfare to work program. That was what got me involved, because the mayor wanted to bring together the community to look at community responses. And that sounded interesting to me. I was a tax accountant, had been practicing for 29 years, was not looking for another vocation, but that's what happens. You get pulled in and realize that, wait a minute, as my husband so blatantly said it. He said, Ginny, I've never seen you have such joy working with this. So instead of, continuing my regular life and just having volunteer situation with the mayor's commission that we had on the Faith and Community Task Force, I realized that there were other things that could be done that would really make a difference. So that meant that I went on and retired. And as my husband said, do we need a home in South Carolina? That was one of the things we were thinking. He was a IT professional. I'd been doing my profession. Our kids were getting close to being out of college. And he said, no, he says, fine, that he'd never seen such joy. And it was strange because it was definitely a paradigm switch. It's not, we don't know where we're going. Often I love to refer to Thomas Merton's prayer that says, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but please let me follow your lead.
Right.
If that wasn't it, I don't know what was, because it was joyful. But Judy McLaughlin and I, as co-founders of the Catholic Action Center, when we, with many, many, many other people, as you know, Leo, you were there on the corner with us when we created it. We thought we were going to address it differently, homelessness, through the Catholic worker movement, and that within 3 to 5 years, we'd have it all solved.
Yeah,
sure. We were going to be open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We had this big plan.
Yeah, sure.
And it just goes to show that when yes, we wanted to make a difference. And yes, we were bringing the community in to be that difference. But, we never know where we're going or where the road's going to lead us. And as long as we're open to it, all kinds of adventures can occur.
Yeah, you definitely have adventures, without question. So you as you tell this, it sounds like it was just this beautiful transition and everything just kind of moved through. I mean, you had to have some moment where you're wrestling with this and you're going, yeah, I got a cushy job. I'm doing all right. I'm going to give all of that up and do this. I mean, there had to be some reservation. Did you not experience that?
The only thing that happened was that I did get such energy from this. And I think that's what we always have to listen to, our passion, our energy.
Right.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting that we were going to do this task force for Mayor Miller and come back with the community involvement to help on this welfare to work problem. And then we would go back to life as normal. Well, sometimes when we see things, no life can go back to normal.
Right, I guess.
My sight was to see and be involved with the poor and the homeless of our community. I used to go to the games down at Rupp Arena and pass the people and not even realize they were homeless.
Wow.
And that's what, once our eyes are open and our hearts are touched, our lives and world are changed.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that this ministry, this area is for everyone.
No, of course not.
One can make a difference. I mean, I've had the joy over 27 years to have, over 10 million meals donated to
Wow.
people who were hungry.
Yeah.
We have had 2.1 nights of shelter that have been given freely to people who would have no place to sleep.
Wow.
Lord only knows how many loads of laundry or toilets have been flushed. But the most important thing is that it develops itself and its identity, such as we are now focusing on elderly and disabled and families with children,
Wow.
because we have been seeing and experiencing that, what the evolution of who is the poor and who are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, once you begin to see that way, it kind of changes everything.
Oh yeah, sure does. Yeah. So what have you seen just in your experience over these past almost 30 years now from people who get involved, from people who, like yourself, discovered that while there is a purpose bigger than themselves, do you see them getting the same sort of energy from this and the same sort of fulfillment? I mean, have you experienced that?
Many, many, many do. It depends on everyone's circumstances. And we tell
Right.
them, when we say you want to be part of it, well, we're open to agnostics through Zen Buddhists.
Yeah.
Yes, our name is Catholic Action Center, but it's Catholic meaning universal. It's based on the work of Dorothy Day and a bunch of agnostics and other such from New York City in the late 20s and early 30s.
Right.
But it is all about the people, and it's all about the community being a solution. Now, if I were to go back to my former life, I would have liked to have been able to put everything in a little box, have it diced, have it planned, have meals planned for weeks in advance, have inventory in the back room.
Mm.
No, what we do is we call in the community, and it didn't take long for us to realize that was what was happening. It's bigger than us.
Wow.
Because there would be days that we say there's no food and we've got 100 and some odd people coming to eat dinner.
Wow.
And we always said we've got bread and peanut butter. It's time to pull out the bread and start making the peanut butter sandwiches. But never once did that happen.
Wow.
Didn't have a caterer walk in with meals for 150 that they wanted to donate.
Right.
I mean, it becomes so obvious that you can't control this. You
Yeah.
can't control the community being able to be part of the solution, whether it's the community coming one time a month, one time a year. If you look at the power of community, you look at the power of the goodness of people. And that's what we get to see at the Catholic Action Center every day.
Yeah.
People will say, don't you get discouraged? You're having to go out and try to find money to pay for this or that. Oh, I mean, no, I cannot say that, because yes, Judy and McLaughlin and I used to laugh back in the old days at the 5th and Chestnut, that if we didn't have enough money for our electric bill, we would have to go stand on the street corner of Race and 3rd. Now, Leo, you probably know what that was. And that joke, sort of, But
well, fortunately, you never had to resort to that either, Jenny. No peanut butter and bread sandwiches, and no corner of the street. It's amazing what I think the other part of all of this is there is provision that happens when you're in alignment, right? And as I said, you said, I don't care what your faith trajectory is or experience or whatever. There is something about being in true alignment with purpose, with universal principles, with whatever it is that is going to feed you that energy that you have, that you've experienced, and that Scripture calls, this Holy Spirit infusion, if you will, of these things that drive you. And that's always going to be met with provision, right? I mean, you don't talk to people who said, well, I finally gave in, I finally did all of this, and then I found myself destitute. No, it's those who are still fighting this tendency of being called to something bigger that they're fighting and not letting go of. That's where that stuff happens.
Right. And the fact is that as long as we keep our eyes open and our hearts open, we'll see we'll see and we'll hear the miracles that happen.
Mm.
I mean, we can be cynical with life. And yes, there were tough days. And of course, there were times we thought, what the heck are we doing?
Sure.
You know, these folks, we can't make a difference. We thought we were going to change it all. And here, 3 years later, we're fighting the city to keep open because they were questioning the zoning. We've had to fight that all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, it could have been an easy, okay, we're going back home.
Yeah.
But just whenever that would even have a whiff of occurring, something else would happen.
Yeah.
Tim would walk in, a man who had no family and who was deaf and who had lived in the inner city for years and said, I only feel safe here. Can I please come be your dishwasher? For
Wow.
free, of course, because everyone's volunteers. I mean, it's, you know, we've got to keep our eyes and ears open as we're on the journey of finding the passion and answering that passion and living it.
Mm-hmm. What have been some of the toughest times? You mentioned some of the things you've had. You fought zoning issues. You've been in your third location now. Is that right? Over the years, I mean, you've had to juggle some things around.
Well, we had Catholic Action Center at 5th and Chestnut.
Right.
And then we also, at that same time, it wasn't large enough for us to have, we
Yeah, the second location.
To the community inn and God's Net 7th. I mean, we had 3 locations.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
But what happened with the community inn on Winchester Road is the city raised its ugly head again and said something about the zoning. Now, it was a church. It was a church, and we had established the religious land use back in 2001 at 5th and Chestnut. That's when they tried to close. We had to go before and do all that. So we had already done that, and we thought, this is ridiculous. Well, Fair Housing came in and said, wait a minute, this is a HUD violation of major proportion.
Wow.
Both of the civil rights of the, I'm trying to think, there are 5 of them: the religious land use, religious land use, Civil Rights Act, the Disabilities Act.
Wow.
It's been so long ago now, I'm not remembering. That was in 2012, but there were 5 codified issues that they had HUD come in and investigate. So the city had to stop from trying to make us close the community while the investigation was going on. That went on for 3 years. And at the end of it, they presented it to the Department of Justice for them to enforce our rights. And actually, they were having civil penalties against the city because they had broken these provisions of our law. We didn't want civil penalties. We said, no, the city, even though we fight, we're all in this together. You know, wait a minute. This is not, we don't want to see a $10 million settlement done. What have we gained? You know, we've got to go forward with what we're trying to do, which is to shelter and to house and to care for our most vulnerable citizens. So we went to mediation, and we were able to come up with a solution, which is our new building. And they bought the old building from us. We paid a decent price, reduced on the industry road. They wanted to just retrofit it and lease it to us, but we said, no, we don't want to be partners in bed with you all, when indeed you've tried to close us twice. You know, sometimes we're going to serve people.
Not a good landlord. That's not somebody you want as your landlord.
No. We don't want you to be our landlord. As much as we can love you, we don't want you to be in that relationship.
That's right.
So we were able to purchase retrofit the building and move in April of 2017. So we have been there now in 8 years, on our 9th year. It's amazing. when I think of it, because, you know, we didn't have any money. Leo, that was the other part. You always have to go out in faith.
Yeah.
We didn't have money to put $1 million into that building, which is what
Wow.
it cost altogether.
Wow.
You know, they gave the discounted, we got their money for Fifth and Chestnut. And anyway, bottom line was we were $1 million poorer than when we had started, which meant that we were a negative $1 million.
Yeah, right. It's a big negative to
We're
jump
not
into.
money, but do you know, we got a mortgage, just acted like regular human beings, got the mortgage. The community was willing to support us.
Wow.
And in less than 2 years, we had paid off the mortgage.
Oh my good Lord. Wow. That's
This-
impressive.
This is the community. We also
Yeah.
at that time put solar on that building.
Hmm.
So that Judy and I did not have to worry about the electric company bill anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe
The
get one off your back.
Good Lord could take care of the electric bill.
That's
And
right.
so no, it's been quite a journey, but it's like, could we planned this? Would this have been a long range plan, a short
Yeah,
range?
right. Yeah.
Of course not. It's
Yeah.
called a plan of faith.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we, you know, no matter what your passion is, yes, you've got to have reasonable plans, but you have to have faith, because often it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
No-
Faith with flexibility, right? I mean, that's
Oh,
the
yes.
thing, because
Flexibility.
we don't necessarily always know the how. We may know the why to some degree. You know, we feel compelled to do something, but when it comes down to the way it's going to be ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of rolling with the punches, right? And kind of seeing what comes up and letting things unfold and trusting where the next path, you know, is going to take you, and not worry about seeing the long path, right? I mean,
Right.
all you got is what's in front of you, and you got to take it and make the most of it.
That's exactly the way I've always felt about this. We have to deal with what's in front of us, whether it be a major winter storm that we ended up housing people who nobody thought were out there. We had 196 people in motel rooms, and
Wow.
again, went into debt for $135,000, but turned around, and within 10 days, the community had relieved that debt.
Oh my.
The people want to help when they know it's making a difference. And that's one thing in our 27 years. One thing, we're all volunteers. Many people don't understand that. I mean, like I said, I retired. I wasn't going to another job. You know, there was some of my own funds we would have to put in at times. You know, we used to laugh about it and just say, well, you know, what's money for if we can't spend it? We're not going to buy that in South Carolina. So no, I remember our first board chair told me very clearly, who was Bob Babbage, by the way.
Mm.
And he said, you know, Jenny, this isn't going to last more than 2 years of all volunteers.
Yeah.
That it just can't happen. You can't run, you know, with all volunteers. I said, no, I think people will be bitten by the bug, because one of the sources we had were people who were retired.
Yeah.
You didn't have to be a young professional. You needed to be someone who maybe had a little life experience and a little bit of and maybe just 5 hours a week. So
And available, right? That's a great ability, availability.
put 10 people together who have 5 hours a week, and all of a sudden you got 50 hours of coverage.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is looking at things differently. But I know that when we were 20 years old, I remember Bob saying, Jenny, I never believed it. You proved me wrong. And I said,
Yeah.
well, I guess so, but we're still at it.
Yeah.
But
So if you had to do it all over again, knowing what you know, would you have changed anything, or would you just like, okay, it's worked the way it's supposed to work?
I think we have to walk in faith. I think
Yeah.
if we changed anything and tried to control anything and made anything different,
Yeah.
it's not us to decide that path. I mean,
Right.
that's the hardest thing to let go of.
All right.
The hardest thing for me to understand. Okay, I'm not going to freak out because we don't have food through next week. Or I'm not going to freak out because we've only got $250 in the bank and we know we've got a $400 electric bill coming up. That was at the
Right.
beginning.
Wow.
Even with this past winter doing the, 196 people in hotel rooms,
Wow.
I've jokingly told a few people I'm getting a lot more gray hairs. Now, that's really not the reason, but they're already there. But it was, I mean, I did feel that to a certain degree is, oh my God, what have we done here? When we found 3 different people who died on the streets, we knew we'd done the right thing. There was no question it was the right thing. I mean, we would have had, there was no way these folks could survive. 85 and 83 and 75-year-olds that were living in
Wow.
cars, they couldn't have survived the severity. So if we do what's right, it'll work out. Now, if it ends up that it doesn't work easily, nobody ever said life was going to be easy.
Right.
We can get through it. And I do have that faith. And particularly after 27 years of doing this, there is more security, but there is still that question, the human question in the back of my brain is, does it make sense? No, we always say we're fools for Christ. A lot of it doesn't make sense.
You're right.
And we can't, when UK and we've had different universities come in to try to do studies on the Catholic Action Center.
Oh, wow.
And how the business plan, and we just laugh. We said, well, the business plan is not in our hands. And they'll say, well, who can we speak to? And we say, you better go to church and pray a little bit. But they don't get, people don't understand how it can happen. But it's so simple, Leo. It's so simple because there's so many good people in our community. There are people who want to be part of something bigger than themselves, just like what you're talking about. Whether it be once a month, once a week, once a year, a time to give. That's what fulfills us. Just like St. Francis said, it is in giving that we receive. Yeah. And that is true. I can tell you that.
Well, the thing that I know is that there's a lot of people right now who are in a world of pain, and they're fine as far as their needs are concerned, their physiological needs, but they're unfortunately in a situation where they see things as bleak, they see things as hopeless, they see things as, whatever, the world as not what they would want the world to be, and there's really only one solution to that, and that's to change the world for somebody else. And have our world changed as well. And that really is the only antidote when you get to that point. And that's the message I want to share. Is like, look, hey, go join. You're open all the time, right? People can walk in there and volunteer and spend some time doing a shift or whatever the case may be. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit and see what else is out there, and see if those issues that you're feeling of, everything being so bad or everything being, going to hell in the handbasket, see if that changes, because perspectives can really, really bring things into focus. And I'm sure you've seen that over the years. Have you seen that in people that have come in and just been transformed?
Absolutely. And we're in the midst of a new project that's going to work with families and children, which is basically one that most people do feel comfortable. And it's a great need. People don't understand there are over 700 kids in Fayette County Public Schools right now that are experiencing homelessness. Wow. So our Give Kids a Home program is a perfect place. And we are always looking for volunteers for that. And we're getting ready to launch something later this spring, which I don't know when this is airing, but it may be launched by then. That's really something that people can get their hands and hearts into. And it's going to be a come see, and does this move you? And would you like to be a tutor, or would you like to teach the mom how to cook, or would you like to work on balancing budgets? Or would you like to just sit and have a cup of coffee with the family that is struggling?
And these are families that are experiencing homelessness that you're trying to move into some sort of transitional living.
We are putting them in transitional. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
And since
Right.
2016, we've had over 2,100 families we've done this with.
Wow.
And that's with mentors, though. They're people from the community who are trying to work with them and to become their friends. It's not working with them as much as it is listening and holding their hand and getting through situations, helping them problem solve, helping them get on their feet and know that people care. Because the one thing, even those who get depressed about the world and whatever, everybody needs to know they belong somewhere. And everybody needs to know that somebody cares about them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's our obligation as human beings, is to let each other understand, Leo, you're important to me. I've known you for 27 years.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's important. It's just so important, because when people feel isolated and when they feel like they have no purpose, which we all have purpose, we just have to find it. You know, we wouldn't be here breathing if we didn't. But I do believe that the bottom line of hope is that we're able to lift each other up when we need lifted, and to accept being lifted up when we need to be lifted up.
Yeah. And that's sometimes a tougher one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough to accept that degree of charity, especially if we either feel like we don't deserve it, or we didn't want to have to find ourselves in the situation of needing it. that could be the other side of the equation.
And the bottom line is, it is what it is. And if the community is open and loving, it's not judgmental. So all of a sudden, you feel safe taking that.
Yeah.
Feeling safe and being respected and walking together is what community is. Whether it means people are making sandwiches that we can pass out to folks on the street, or whether it means that they come and pass out the sandwiches.
Right. Well, it's impressive what you've been doing for such a long time, and it's always refreshing talking to you and knowing that, you know, that's you got another new initiative, you're doing something else, you're stepping out there. Now, with the families, if somebody's interested in that, how do you become a mentor?
All they need to do, they can go to our website at catholicactioncenter.net, and Give Kids a Home is the name of it.
Okay.
It's been going on since 2016, but the expansion is getting ready to occur exponentially, and we need more and more. We're going to be doing all kinds of training for folks who want to be part of it. It's exciting. It's a way that we know we can address an issue that is important to everybody in our community. We cannot have these children suffering in homelessness.
Yeah. Well, our prior Holy Father, Saint John Paul II, talked about networks being as valuable as net worth at one point in his teachings. That, you know, it's the unfortunate the people get in these situations where they don't have anybody there, or at least they certainly don't feel like they have anybody. They feel estranged from every level of support that they've ever had in their life, at the point where they believe everyone has given up on them, unfortunately.
Right.
You know, and that's usually where they end up, you know.
And they don't think anybody cares.
That's right. Right.
I mean, and there are people out there who care, whether they already know you or not.
That's right. They're just waiting to care for you. We got to figure that out. We got to connect those dots, right? That's what it's about. We'll keep an eye on the website. We'll always be there for you, Jenny. Thank you so much for sharing your time, and it's just impressive what you do, and the fact that you're going into almost 30 years of it. It seems like yesterday we were out there partying on 5th and Chestnut, opening up that place.
It does. They didn't know what hit 5th and Chestnut.
That's right.
But yeah, awesome. We all do it together. And, you know, the bottom line of it is that this is life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being with us.
It's my pleasure.
Just another big thank you to Ginny Ramsey being guest number 1. We will do that every podcast episode every week, with a long form conversation with a guest of that nature. So if you or someone you know wants to be a guest, and you got a great story about living your purpose, and you're out there doing something, you want to be an inspiration, We need more of you. The world needs way more people who are willing to inspire positively than to simply always complain and criticize. The world's got lots of those, lots and lots of those. So something cool that I'm going to be doing with clients, and this is because take this thing back to the 90s, my career, that is, as Freak Daddy, I've been working with clients all that time. So go all the way back to the 90s. What have I been doing is getting into boardrooms. I know this sounds crazy, but before even I got into doing the stuff with radio, I had this crazy. Okay, so I don't want to make a long story longer, but I did professional theater for a while. I thought I wanted to be an actor. I thought I was going to go to New York. I thought I was going to be that dude singing and dancing my way on into the hearts of America. And then I got to do professional theater. And I realized just how boring it was. And I hate to say that because it's hard, right? And I know what I accomplished was not easy. It was miraculous. It was crazy. I don't know why I was on this big trajectory and just unbelievably insane the amount of success I had very quickly at a young age. And then literally to discover before I'm even out of college that this is not what I want to do. It was devastating. Quite honestly, it was painful. And I just happened to find my way into this oddly open position as in marketing at a mall in Louisville, Kentucky, the Mall St. Matthews, and this was in the 80s, in the late 80s. I was in college. And I strangely fell in love with this world of marketing and advertising and working with businesses, and especially collaborating with businesses, because that was kind of my job as in promotions and mall promotions and the part of the marketing world there was getting everybody on board for things. And the big thing that I did when we were there is we opened a food court. And my good Lord, I mean, you talk about getting everybody on board. They were all excited about this. It was just a big, big fun thing that we did, and dealing with the press work, and then again, just all the relationships between the vendors and you name it. I mean, it was just unbelievably amazing. And I fell in love with this work. And so that later on, getting into radio as I did, and that was after 5 years of trying to be a rock star, and I don't want to make this whole thing just about Leo's crazy stories, but why else are you listening, right? I mean, if you're here this long, that you're obviously hanging in there. My wife gave up in the first 2 minutes of segment one. So anyway, where I'm going with all this craziness is something that I discovered in that job at the mall. Is it's fun when everybody succeeds, right? It's really fun when you're doing something, even if it was something as simple as like a mall-wide trick-or-treat. We did that. Pretty easy to execute, really. And it was a win. It was just a huge win to watch the community come in and hang out, and the kids and all the fun stuff. I mean, it was just awesome watching that world come together. And, in an ecosystem of that nature, like a mall, you can have a lot of fun because you're connected. You're under one roof. It's very easy to connect all of that Christmas or Halloween or this big opening thing. So I discovered early how much I enjoy helping other people succeed, as we did, and everything that we did. We were all in. It was collaborative. It was wonderful. It was cool, and that's what I've brought to advertisers since the 90s when I got into radio. And that is bringing this collaborative approach of coming together and going, oh, how do we work together? How do we do something cool? How do we create something that's never been created? And it all stems right back to that craziness. And I'll credit my boss, Kathy Parsenko, wherever you are, God bless you. Relentless pursuit of, we're going to do this thing and we're going to do it this way, and no ifs, ands, or buts, no internet. We're out there just making phone calls. I am all day trying to find pieces and parts put together for this big crazy promotion. I mean, just the tenacity and the challenge and all of the stuff that was part of that was just so much preparation for my future everything, and I didn't even realize what it was I was experiencing. But all that to say, I love working with clients. I love doing cool stuff. I like just collaborating and creating. And what you're about to see is a product of that nature. And there are going to be more of these as we expand in the podcast. And I'm always looking for individuals to work with. And right now, I'm wheeling and dealing because this is brand new stuff. So, and it lives in perpetuity. So some cool opportunities right now. This is Pam Snyder of Simply Home Real Estate. Watch this. It's cool.
Agent Pam with Wes Hogan.
Hey, how are you, Jen?
I'm well. How are you?
It's a Friday afternoon. The sun's shining. There's no snow. There's no ice.
You can't beat that.
Can't beat it.
I am out investigating the North Limestone corridor of Lexington, and that brought me to Wes's business.
Yeah, thanks for being here at Old North Bar.
Absolutely, Old North Bar. So tell us a little bit about your place.
So we're here at Gray Line Station. We've been here for actually just a little bit longer than 5 years now. We opened on Black Friday of 2020, right in the middle of COVID.
Oh,
Which, that was good times.
how'd that go?
No, it just went. We're past that now. But it's been really cool to kind of become like the neighborhood bar for sort of like the Castlewood neighborhood, the North Limestone corridor. This is such a cool and developing neighborhood. There's a lot of stuff happening here in this part of town that maybe doesn't get the attention that it deserves. It's an up and coming neighborhood, a little bit of a renaissance going on. Gray Line Station's a big part of that. There are so many like cool, small, and independent local businesses here. There's, we have Old North obviously here, but there's Wing King and Son of Burger, and there's a great wine bar, the Spoken Distillery. They make their whiskey right here on site. There's so many cool places. Rayanne's Popcorn, Vintage Therapy, Nourished Folks. Media Lex is just right here in the building as well. So, Gray Line's become a little bit of a hub for the North Limestone neighborhood, and it's been a really cool experience the last 5 or 5.5 years to be part of, sort of the genesis of this neighborhood, or regenesis of it maybe, and seeing its growing. And kind of fulfilling the potential that I think a lot of folks who live here for a long time know that it has.
There are a lot of homes for sale in this neighborhood, right? So what would you say to somebody who was thinking about buying in this area of Lexington?
Well, that's a good question. There aren't a ton of neighborhoods in Lexington that are like super walkable, and that's a big thing, I think. It just kind of gives a sense of community and a sense of belonging in neighborhood to a particular part of town. But like the North Limestone neighborhoods, it's really walkable. In addition to Gray Line, there are all kinds of kind of cool businesses up and down North Limestone. There's Arcadium, there's Mexico Mia Moore just across the street, and it's a place where you can come and kind of get almost all of your needs kind of fulfilled in terms of entertainment and shopping and dining and all the kind of cool parts of just being a Lexingtonian that people really enjoy. And there are a lot of neighborhoods in town that really still offer that.
One of the big things people wonder about when they're looking for property or looking for a neighborhood, they wonder about that sense of community. So how would you describe the sense of community here in this area?
I mean, certainly you want to feel at home where you live.
Sure.
Everybody does. As I said, we've been here in Old North for about 5.5, 6 years. And we were new to the community, the North Side community. And we've been fortunate enough to build relationships with a lot of folks who live here in our neighborhood, and they let us into their community, and they made us a part of that.
I love that.
And that's been really cool to kind of be the new kid on the block in some ways, but also be welcome with open arms. And it's been such an incredible experience, and the people that we've met, the folks that walk through our doors and that we see 4 and 5 and 6 days a week, they're not just folks that come here and they're customers of ours, but they're part of our life, part of our fabric. And I think that speaks a lot of the community that happens on the north side of town.
Wes, thank you so much for your insight on the community and the area here on the north side of Lexington. It was a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know a little bit about your business.
Well, thanks for being here today. We'd love to have you guys back. Appreciate your time.
So that's Pam's feature, Living the Bluegrass. We're going to be doing a lot more of that kind of stuff with Pam, of course, and a number of businesses and attractions and features and things of that nature across our beautiful state. And I'm looking to do a lot more creative type of work with clients. And again, back to what I was saying earlier, that's something that I really enjoy as much as doing the nonprofit stuff and knowing that we're helping people out is when I can watch a business grow, and your growth is a result of an idea that I brought you, and we all know that, and it's awesome. And I've watched that happen so many times, and I just look forward to being able to do that again now independently on my own. I've kind of had those experiences almost in the Catholic world when we're doing some really creative, neat stuff, and I didn't have a lot of corporate garbage to wade through. We could just make quick decisions and do some really neat stuff. Well, guess what? Now there's absolutely none of that. So everything that we do is going to be quick and awesome and fun. And that's what we're doing with Pam, doing these cool features. Those are already paying dividends for her just in the networking that she's getting through that. It's amazing. She's also one of my early partners and one of my partners on the First 10 Win event, which is the monthly business networking. Look at the website, noiseforhope.org. Of course, it's all connected here, and you'll find out all about all that stuff. So really cool, neat stuff happening. A lot developing around the podcast, but a lot more developing in the community with the networking that we're doing, with the events that we're doing, all of the things that we have going on. And again, just building that ethic. That's really what I want to do. Build this ethic and this movement, if you want to call it that, of people who've got each other's backs. How hard is that? You know, I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Grafenberg, Kentucky. We had each other's backs. That's what we did. We didn't argue about politics. We didn't care about that. You know, somebody needed their car jumped. Somebody had a set of jumper cables. We were there. You know, whatever. Somebody living alone and elderly just needs somebody to go hang out with them and talk to them for an afternoon. We were there. We did that kind of stuff. That's how I grew up, you know. And that's the ethic I want to bring into my community, my global community, of just saying, hey, let's be the best we can be. Let's find ways to truly be contributive. Let's, you know, and we'll dig deeply into all this stuff. If you're geeky enough to hang out with me and get it, that's awesome. But you know, this hierarchy of needs that we saw Abraham Maslow present in the mid 20th century, where he just observed what people go through, this cycle of physiological needs, you know, survival, into growth, from growth into needing relationships, from needing relationships into needing recognition for everything that you've accomplished. From that to this top part that he saw as self-actualized, is what he called it. But then he only identified less than 1% of the population in this category that he identified. And he called them lofty, basically, is what he said. Right? These people are lofty, which you could take that as good or bad, I suppose. I'm not really sure how to look at that. But maybe ambitious, maybe, you know, a little more energetic, positive, lots of ambition and optimism. I don't know. These were some of the things that I've heard him mention in the videos that I've seen. Nonetheless, he didn't give you a path. He didn't give you a roadmap. He just said, this is what's out there. And what I'm trying to do is go, okay, when you get to that point of realizing that you've climbed that ladder a number of times, you got to get off of that thing at some point, right? You can't just keep doing that to yourself. You can't keep, and that's when amazing things can happen, because now you can go, okay, and I'm not saying you pack up like the Billy Joel song, you know, if that's your thing, go give them the stand-up routine in LA. That's great if that's your thing. But I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying find that thing that fulfills you emotionally. Good Lord. You know, that's okay. It's okay. We're humans. We have emotions. It's okay to be fulfilled that way. Find the thing that you're passionate about. Find the thing that you love dearly. As I've said many times, you know, it might just be that cake that you only prepare for the family. Get it out somehow. I don't know. Make it on your birthday and serve it to everyone or whatever. I don't know. Partner with a food truck. Make some cakes. I've tried that, by the way, with cookies, and you got to be prepared for scale, which is always another thing. I think I'm in my wheelhouse. I believe I am. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for enduring episode 1 with me. And lots of really cool stuff to come with all of this. I'm humbled. I'm gracious. And I thank you so much for being on this journey with me. Really appreciate it. I hope this helps you.